And speaking of shit libs, oh my God. Bill Maher gave a rant last Friday, not this today, but a week ago. And he was trending over it. Why was he trending over it? Because it may have been the dumbest thing I've ever heard on television, and that includes the religious channels. And CNN. So he was giving a speech about how you shouldn't complain about living in the United States. Says a guy who's been a millionaire since 1988. You shouldn't complain. A guy who's never had to have his medicine, never lived under a bridge, never went homeless, never had everything, never had to worry about anything. So listen to what this is amazing, and here we go.
But liberals, as usual...
Let's turn it up a little.
But liberals, as usual in this era, have now gone too far in the other direction. They under-romanticize America. They have no perspective. Last week, the Taliban murdered a comedian. His name was Nazar Mohammed, and he made up funny songs on TikTok. They forced him into a car, tortured, and then executed him. A comedian.
They murdered a comedian, whereas Bill Maher just murdered comedy, which is a little different. I don't know why that would hit so close to home for him. He's such a rebel. Well, here we go.
Hair off his face.
A thing like that hits a little close to home for me. I've had 2 presidents up my ass. This one warned me to stop speaking my mind.
They need to watch what they say, watch what they do, and this is not a time for remarks like that. There never is.
And this one sued me over a joke.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, neither experience was pleasant. But I didn't have to worry about being dragged till I'm dead behind a Toyota Tacoma. Have a little perspective about the stuff we howl about here.
Again, Bill is ignoring that Edward Snowden has to live in Russia right now. Julian Assange, they've been trying to kill him for a decade straight. That's what we do to journalists here in the United States. That's what we do. So they did that to a comedian. Guess what we do to journalists? Okay, all right? And we censor everybody. Okay, here we go. Wow. So Bill's going to tell you how great America is. Here we go.
I'm sorry your professor said something you didn't like. That won't be a problem with the Taliban because you're not allowed to go to school. And so...
Guess who invented the Taliban, Bill? Afghanistan had a socialist government. The United States intervened, propped up the Taliban, invented them as a way to fight back against Russia. We thought we were going to have a big own on Russia. And now the Taliban, who, by the way, we're working with right now. So these people you hate who are taking Afghanistan and keeping it in the Stone Age, we invented them. The United States. Bill doesn't know this, so he doesn't share it with you. So that's why he has his fake millionaire liberal outrage right now at people criticizing America. Why? Because he's an ignorant douchebag who has never fucking experienced any of the shit that America throws at most of its people because he's lived a life of privilege his entire fucking life. Here we go.
Arabia, grown women can be jailed for doing the kind of things we think of as routine without the permission of a male guardian.
Saudi Arabia, who we prop up with the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia, who funded ISIS directly. Who we prop up with the petrodollar, who we are now murdering people around the globe at the behest of. Why do you think we're murdering the poorest people in the world in Yemen? Why do you think we're helping commit a genocide? Because we're in bed with Saudi Arabia, Bill. They're our friends.
China rounds you up if you're the wrong religion and puts you in camps.
Oh, God.
More children in Burkina Faso work than are in school. Only 5% of Burundians have electricity. The homicide rate in Honduras is 8 times what it is here.
I wonder why all these problems. What is going on that would have such a high murder rate in Honduras? Why would that be happening, Bill? What is America doing?
The inflation rate in Venezuela is 2,719%.
Boy, it does suck to live in Venezuela. I wonder why their inflation rate is 279%. I wonder if there's some capitalist behemoth that has been trying to fuck over that socialist country because they actually take care of their people and lift them out of poverty. And as we all know, the mission of the United States military is to make sure no socialist government ever is successful in South America or Central America. And I know that, but I guess the guy from HBO doesn't know that and doesn't know why they're having such problems in Venezuela. Okay, it's because the capitalists, which run our government, have been fucking over that country economically ever since they became socialists. That's why. Again, Bill doesn't know his asshole from a hole in the ground and thinks we should look at other countries which we destroyed and think that we should feel better back here at home, as they do the same thing to us back here at home.
The Philippines, in the last 5 years, has put to death 27,000 low-level drug dealers. My old job. In North Korea...
Guess what, Bill? The United States, because of the drug war, happens to be the world's largest penal colony, not the Philippines. The United States imprisons more people than fucking China. And those people are black and brown. Disproportionately. We have a racist criminal justice system which locks up more people than any other country in the fucking world, including China, which has about 10 billion more people than we do. This is your success story. You're really pointing to the United States as a success story. That's what Bill Maher's doing right now and telling you to shut up if you want to complain about it and make it better.
Yeah, people starve to death. The only people who starve here are doing it for a role.
So that's, again, Bill Maher. Imagine if you were one of the 35 million people in America who are food insecure, and you saw that piece of shit make that joke, telling you you're not hungry, you're not food insecure. Well, Bill, if you did a cursory Google search, you would find out that 35 million people, according to the USDA's latest household food insecurity in the United States report, more than 35 million people in the United States experienced hunger in 2019. Households with children are more likely to experience food insecurity. 35 million people, most of those households with children, are experiencing food insecurity. That was before the pandemic. That was before COVID. You know that 80% of workers were paycheck to paycheck. Do you know that, Bill? You know that 50% of wage earners earn less than $30,000 in the United States? Did you know that? Do you know that 50% of Americans can't afford a $400 emergency in the United States, Bill? Of course he doesn't know anything, because the only time he talks to anybody outside of his class is when someone drives him somewhere. U.S. comes in last in healthcare rankings, Bill. Did you know that? The United States comes in last in healthcare rankings of major countries. In fact, here's where we are. Dominican Republic is 35th in healthcare. Costa Rica, 36th. United States, 37th. Behind the Dominican Republic and Costa fucking Rica, the richest country in the world. And that's not because we don't have the resources to do it, Bill. That's because the country's run by pieces of shit liberals who are fucking corporate cocksuckers like you are. That's why this is. Not because we don't have the resources to have a good healthcare system. Because of pieces of shit like you, when activists activate to do shit like that, you shit on them and tell them to shut their mouths. And vote for Amy Klobuchar. That's Bill. That was Bill. I should call him Bill O'Reilly. Right. That was Bill Maher's choice last year. Amy Klobuchar. You want to hear some more stupid shit?
If you think America is irredeemable, turn on the news or get a passport and a ticket on one of those sketchy airlines that puts its web address on the plane.
You mean like Frontier? Oh, I'm sorry.
There's a reason Afghan mothers are handing their babies to us.
Yeah. He doesn't know the reason, but he thinks it's a big own on people who are critics of the United States. The reason why Afghan mothers are handing their babies to American soldiers is because the United States wiped out their socialist government in the 70s so we can fucking prop up the Mujahideen, which is now the Taliban, which is going to kill those fucking people. Why? Because we propped them up and invented them and got rid of a government that was actually taking care of them. Oh, and then for 20 years, we bombed the fucking shit out of their country. That's why they're doing that, Bill. Oh, my God. And the morons that go to see his show live, holy shit, do I not want to have a drink with them at a bar. Oh, my God.
And we should take them. Americans right now should take in Afghan refugees into their homes and into their neighborhoods.
And forget about the 600,000 people sleeping outside your doorstep, Bill. Don't do anything for those people. Don't do anything for the 600,000 people who go bankrupt for medical bills every year, or the people who are under mountains of student loan debt, or people who can't get a living wage in the United States. Or how about the 40% of homeless people who actually have jobs, but don't make enough money in the richest country in the world to have a house?
And I'm sure everyone who just clapped is thinking the same thing. Yes, someone who isn't me should definitely do that. But that doesn't make us the bad guys. We're not the bad guys. Oppression is what we were trying to stop in Afghanistan.
What an adorable little boy Bill Maher is. How adorable. No, the CIA and the U.S. military for 20 years, we were trying to end oppression in the Middle East. Oh, my God. We're ending oppression, you guys. That's why we're occupying a country that we destabilized, built up violent terrorists to take over, and now we're in bed with them again because we're the good guys. We're fighting oppression like we were fighting oppression in Iraq and Somalia and Yemen and Libya and Syria. We're fighting oppression, says Bill, the fucking idiot on purpose Maher. What a fucking moron. I mean, Jesus Christ, I know I'm dumb. But this is a whole new level of intentional stupidity. Because that's what this is. Holy fuck. So Bill Maher's whole message is other places in the world have problems that we're causing, so let's not do anything to fix the problems in America. Because other places are shitty. Bill's a right-winger who does Trump jokes. That's what Bill Maher is. He's a corporatist, right-wing Democrat who does Trump jokes. Is there more to this stupid shit?
We failed, but any immigrant will tell you.
Any immigrant.
We've largely succeeded here, and yet the overriding thrust of current woke ideology is that America is rotten to the core, irredeemably racist from the moment it was founded, and so oppressive, sexist, and homophobic.
We did commit a genocide to found this country, Bill. There were people called Native Americans who lived here, and we did wipe them out. That happened. Then we did import a bunch of other black people and create a second-tier society that were literal slaves in chains. That's how they built the Southern economy. That's not made up, Bill. That's fucking real. And they weren't even allowed to vote until the 60s. What are you fucking talking about?
We can't find a host for the Oscars or Jeopardy.
So now, again, what does this have to do with anything? Nothing. This doesn't have anything to do with what he's talking about.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure you heard the new Jeopardy guy is out because he said boobies in 2014. And this is where your new Afghani roommates that took in will prove so valuable because they'll turn to you and say, have you people lost your fucking minds? Have you?
Yes, Bill. The only problem America has with racism is sexism is finding hosts for game shows. That's the only problem that we have with those two issues. This is amazing. This is real. This happened on HBO in a room full of people. And these are the guests he has. I got fucking ripped for fucking talking to an anti-war, pro-LGBT fucking boogaloo boy. This guy's the fucking literal devil. And he has people on like this all the time and they yuck it up with their friends. Bill Maher's best friends with Ann Coulter. Just not Tucker Carlson, because that's the guy that's... You can't be friends with Tucker, but you can be friends with Ann Coulter and still be Bill Maher.
Have you ever heard of honor killings? Public beheadings? Throwing gay men off of roofs? Arranged marriages?
Have you ever heard of America having the death penalty, killing poor black and brown people without legal representation? Have you heard that Bill Clinton got off the campaign trail to go kill a mentally retarded guy while he was running for president? Did you know that? Do you know that there's a thing called the Innocence Project, and every time they look at somebody, they're innocent, yet we're killing them, state-sanctioned murder? You know, Joe Biden just murdered some innocent women and children. 2 weeks ago, he just bombed a health clinic and a high school and killed 20 women and children. This idea that your government is less murderous than someone else is a lie you tell yourself to feel better about yourself in your $10 billion mansion when you go to sleep at night. This is a lie that Bill likes to tell himself and his fucking brain-dead audience. Amy Klobuchar. That was Bill Maher's pick. Amy Klobuchar. And he gets a show.
Minors, state-sanctioned wife-beating, female genital mutilation, marriage by capture, because we have. What's the lesson of Afghanistan? Maybe it's that everyone from the giant dorm room bitch session that is the internet should take a good look at what real oppression looks like. Ask your maid. Ask your Uber driver. Ask the Asian woman giving you a massage. She'll tell you this place is Shangri-La, and not just because
Yeah, my maid says she's happy here. So we don't have any problems in the United States. My maid says she's happy here. The guy who drives me over to the studio lot, he tells me he's happy here too. You know, 1 in 5 children are homeless in the United States, right? 1 in 5 homeless people are children. Great country you got. You know, Bill, what do you call the richest country in the world? What do you call a system, Bill, that takes the richest country in the world, renders half their people poor or low income without enough money to handle a $400 emergency? What do you call that? You call that a failed system. What do you take a system that takes the richest country in the world and renders 80% of its workers living paycheck to paycheck? You call that a failed system. What do you call a system that in the middle of a lockdown where they took people's income away and they didn't replace it like the rest of the Western world did? When they shut your business down during COVID, they paid your employees wages. They didn't do that in the United States. They put people in poverty as they committed the biggest upward wealth transfer in history of $5 trillion upward to the richest billionaire and oligarchs in our country. What do you call that? You call that a failed system, Bill. And because Bill Maher is rich and has been for 30 fucking years, and the only time he ever talks to a worker is when someone drives him onto a movie set or a TV set, that's the only that he thinks he's got his finger on the pulse. This should be called the Nationalist Liberal Hour. Nationalist Neoliberal Hour. Because that's what Bill Maher is, a neoliberal. My maid says she's happy. That's Bill Maher. Well, there's more?
But that doesn't make us the bad guys.
Oh, we already saw that. Now, here's 2 minutes of Bill Maher getting his ass handed to him. This is going to be a nice palate cleanser. This is going to make all that shit you just heard feel a lot better. Ready? Watch this.
It's not our fault what came out. We didn't go into Egypt.
Well, we
wound up
What do
with
you
the
mean?
Muslim
We didn't go
Brotherhood.
into Egypt. We were supporting and propping up Mubarak for 30 years, even as we were cheering for all the Tahrir Square demonstrators as though we were on their side. It was our government that kept Mubarak in power, just like we've done across the entire Muslim world. And it's amazing for you to say that, well, look at all these Muslims. The minute you give them a little bit of freedom, they go wild and they start being all violent. How can you be a citizen of the United States, the country that has generated more violence and militarism in the world over the last 5 or 6 decades, and say, look at those people over there, they are incredibly violent? We play a significant role in what has been happening in the Middle East because we've been interfering and dominating that region in order to have access to the oil.
I wasn't talking about violence.
So,
I was talking about theocracy. That doesn't happen here.
No, well, okay, that doesn't happen here, but at the same time, Iran isn't invading lots of other countries and occupying them for a decade, nor are fundamentalist Muslim countries the way the United States is. So these things are interlinked because we are continuously interfering in that part of the world. And so to say...
Really, it's all our fault?
It's not all our fault, but when you send your military for 6 straight decades into other countries to bomb them, kill their children and women and innocent men,
we weren't
prop up
doing that.
dictators, yeah, you take responsibility for your actions and say, to the extent that that region...
That religion goes back 1,000 years before our revolution, so I don't think we can take all the blame.
I don't think we should. I think we should take a lot of it. And there's lots of bodies and corpses that have been piled up in the name of Christianity and Judaism as well.
Not recently.
Have you heard of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza for the last 50 years, motivated in part by extremist views of Judaism, or the wars in Europe, or the fact that there were generals in the United States saying we have to go and invade and destroy Iraq, a country of 26 million people, because our God is bigger? Lots of religions, not just Islam, produce violence.
Well, if I could just make one quick point about Egypt.
That silly liberal view that all religions are alike because it makes you feel good.
No, it makes you feel good to say our side is better. Those people over there are primitive and violent. No, it makes you feel good to put a crown on your head and say, I'm a good person. How do I prove that? You get to ignore the responsibility that your own government has for the violence and instability in the world by saying, look, it's that primitive religion over there that's to blame.
All right, it's time for...
So that's what happens, and that's why Bill Maher doesn't have Glenn Greenwald on anymore. Remember he had Crystal Ball on? She humiliated him. And he likes to have right wingers on his show because nobody likes to have anybody to the left of them around. Okay, so a good way to get unpopular is to be to the left of people. They don't like it. They smear you constantly. That's why you see what happens to this show. You see what happens to Glenn Greenwald. You see what happens to Julian Assange. You see what happens to Edward Snowden. You get to the left of people and they smear you. And that's exactly what happens. And they try to kill you. So that was fun, and that's why Bill Maher doesn't like to bring on anybody who's to the left of him. And it was funny when I did Joe Rogan one time. He was coming on next. He was the next guest. He would not come in the building until his assistant assured him I had left the building because I was waiting. And he would not come in. His car wouldn't even come around. He was sitting in a car around the corner waiting for his assistant to give him the heads up, Jimmy Dore has left. And that's what happened. So there you go. Bill Maher wrote a great book, by the way. His book, True Stories. It's about stand-up comedy, and I read it twice. It's fucking great. I love that book. And, Bill Maher's show, Politically Incorrect, when it first aired, it was a good show. I liked it. This show he's ridiculous now. He's fucking ridiculous. And if I ever get as ridiculous as Bill Maher is right now, I hope there's a YouTuber who fucking hands me my ass. Because you need a slap in the face to wake up every once in a while. And if I ever get that bad, I swear to God, I hope somebody does that to me. But again, let's remember, my main job, I'm a comedian. That's my real job. I'm not one of these guys who calls himself a comedian, right? Like, I'm a comedian because I'm funny on my show. No, I'm an actual comedian, meaning you can drop me into a room full of people who don't know me and I can make them laugh for an hour straight. That's what I mean about I'm a comedian. Okay. The Jimmy Dore Show is coming to a city near you August 28th. We're in Las Vegas at the Plaza, and we just added another show in Portland. We're there in Portland on September 10th and 11th. October 3rd, we're at Harlow's in Sacramento. More dates being added. Go to jimmydoorecomedy.com for a link for all tickets. See you at a live show.